I got too many.
Hey, I'm PH and welcome to Good Bible Knowledge with PhD. In this set of videos, I want to provide answers to common questions about the Bible in a fun and creative way. I hope these videos will be helpful for your own spiritual journey in Jesus. Let's get started. What happened to Hezekiah after the deliverance of Jerusalem? Hezekiah was one of the greatest kings of the southern kingdom of Judah. He was a godly king who brought about one of the greatest revivals in all of Judah's history as he rid the land of idolatry and led his people in humble worship of the Lord. And in a time of national crisis, his personal faith and reverence of the Lord brought about a miraculous deliverance of Jerusalem from the ruthless nation of Assyria. Sometime later, Hezekiah became gravely ill, and he sought the Lord through the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah's message in return was, "Put your house in order, for you will not recover from this illness." Upon hearing this, Hezekiah turned his face towards the wall and wept bitterly, and he humbly poured out his heart before the Lord. Hezekiah's sorrow went beyond his own personal well-being. What would become of the spiritual reforms that had been only recently set in motion? And without a proper heir, what would become of God's covenantal promise that there would always be a king from the line of David on the throne of Israel? As Hezekiah humbled himself before the Lord, God sent the prophet Isaiah with a message that God had heard his prayers and would grant Hezekiah an additional 15 years of life. And because of Hezekiah's faithfulness, God promised that Jerusalem would have peace throughout his reign as king. As confirmation of his promise, God miraculously caused the shadow of the sun to move backwards 10 paces. Sometime later, Merodach-Baladan, the king of Babylon, hearing of Hezekiah's miraculous healing, sent ambassadors to greet and congratulate Hezekiah. At that time, Babylon was a newly rising empire that was seeking to challenge the dominance of Assyria in the region. The king of Babylon was thus hoping to gain a valuable ally in Israel. When Hezekiah received these distinguished messengers, he sought to impress them by showing them his vast store of riches and wealth. When the Babylonian messengers departed, the prophet Isaiah immediately confronted Hezekiah. Instead of using this opportunity to honor the Lord, Hezekiah used it to boast of his own riches. And because of this, Isaiah prophesied that someday the nation of Babylon would rise to power, would invade Jerusalem, take the people captive, and plunder all of its riches. What can we learn from this incident in the life of Hezekiah? God, in his mercy, graciously granted Hezekiah an additional 15 years of life. This was a gracious opportunity to continue to bring honor to the Lord and serve his kingdom. However, in a moment of weakness, due to his own pride, Hezekiah chose to revel in his own accomplishments rather than to give God the glory and honor. And as a result, God rebuked Hezekiah, saying, "Everything that was given to you by grace can just as easily be taken away." Now, we do not need to live in fear that God will suddenly take away all that he has given. Rather, we want to remember that all of our years and all that we have are ultimately gifts from God, to be enjoyed and used to bless God and others. And when we are given opportunity to boast in ourselves, we instead want to boast of the love of God expressed through the death and resurrection of Jesus, his Son. Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge. We'll see you next time.